This is a tutorial that will take you through the basics of the Vortals interface. If this is the first time that you've loaded Vortals, you'll be greeted with a single file called Introduction to Vortals, and you'll see on the left-hand side a whole bunch of options. Now, if you take your mouse over the top of the file, you'll see some extra options pop up. Now, if you click Edit, that will take you to the editing package, and you'll be able to edit all the content in the Introduction to Vortals. If you click Present, you can play back or you can present back the content that's been created in Vortals. And while in presentation modes, Vortals gives you the option to record your presentation. And once you've done that, you can then choose to click play and watch back your presentation. And of course, you can click delete to delete the file. On the left, you'll see an import file, and if you've previously exported files from Vortals, you can use this to import those files back into the system. And on the top left here, you'll see the new Vortal, and if you click that, that will take you to the editing system. And so we'll do that right now. Once you have clicked on New Vortal, you'll be greeted with this project setup screen. And you'll need to add some or choose some project details. So I'm just going to give it a name first. And I'm going to choose Mixed Reality. Now, Mixed Reality will work much like you're used to with typical presentation systems where you simply add the slides in a consecutive manner. Adaptive Mixed Reality uses a node-based system to create the slides. It's visually very daunting, but it's actually a very simple system. But for the sakes of this tutorial, we're going to keep with Mixed Reality. Interaction type refers to some augmented reality processes that we're going to ignore for this particular tutorial, and we're going to keep it on linear. And we're going to choose a 16:9 aspect ratio. And we're going to click Create, and then we're greeted with a slide setup. Now we're able to choose a 2D slide, a 3D slide, a virtual reality slide, an augmented reality slide, and a GPS slide. Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to ignore GPS slide, and we're going to stick with these four main options. To create a 2D slide, I simply click the button, and you'll be greeted with a very typical 2D slide that you might have seen in any other presentation system. On the left, you can see the slide tab, and on the right, you can see a properties panel. So if I choose to add any of these elements, the properties of those elements will be shown here. So very quickly, I will add an image. So I just come up here to the image button, I click it, and I navigate to find my image, and I load it up. And here it is. If I select this image, you'll be greeted with some red gizmos to help you scale this image to the size that you want. And if I click in the center or anywhere around in the middle of these red gizmos, I can move this image around. And if I've decided that this is the wrong image, I didn't want to load this one, I can come to the properties panel, which is now changed to tell you that it's the image panel, and I can change image, and I can load a different image here. And for each one of these element options, you'll be greeted with a different bunch of options to change whatever system you're working with. So if I add some text here, you'll see I have font options that come up. Now, if I want to add another slide, I click Add Slide, and I'm greeted with the slide setup screen again. And this time, I'm going to add a virtual reality slide. So I click the virtual reality, and you can see here on the left, I'm greeted with a VR slide. And then I'm also greeted with this 3D environment. To navigate this 3D environment is slightly different to working with the 2D space. And you'll need to know the buttons in order to actually navigate. If you want to move backwards and forwards or zoom in and out of a scene, you simply scroll your mouse wheel backwards or forwards. In order to pan the camera left or right, you click the scroll wheel down and hold it, and you can pan the camera left or right or up and down. Now, if I want to rotate in this viewport, I press the Alt button, and I can rotate around. So it might take a little bit of practice to get used to the 3D environment, but once you're used to it, it'll be very simple to navigate around and interact with the objects. Now, if I want to add an augmented reality slide, I come back up to Add Slide, and I click AR Slide. And I'm given a bunch of options here for the augmented reality slide. Most of the stuff you can ignore when you're creating a system. The one to really worry about is tracking plate. So there are two main ways that Vortals will work with augmented reality. The one is no image, and that will use augmented reality without looking for any marker images. It will simply project whatever content you have into the real world and attempt to build an augmented solution from the real world. The other way to do it is to use a tracking plate. Now, if you use a tracking plate, it will look for that particular tracking plate, and if it sees that in the real world, it will augment the content of the slide into that particular world. So if I choose the microscope tracking plate, for example, that I have loaded, I click Create, and now it gives me a microscope image. Now, when I load this onto a device that's augmented reality capable, the device will turn its camera on and it will start looking for this particular picture in the real world. And if it finds it, it will load content relative to where you put it in this particular virtual world. So navigating the augmented space is exactly like navigating in the virtual reality space. To rotate the camera, I'm pressing Alt and then the scroll wheel button down and rotating. If I want to pan, it's the middle scroll wheel button, and I'm panning up and down and left and right. And again, the scroll wheel takes me backwards and forwards. So that interaction between 3D space is the same between a VR slide, an AR slide, and also a 3D slide. So I've just created a 3D slide here, and you can see that the system is exactly the same between them. The difference is when you have a presentation system, the operations and presentation mode are very different. So for a virtual reality slide, any content I put in here will be viewable with augmented reality devices. So if you have this on a phone system, you can watch back any virtual reality content in with the virtual reality headset, such as an Oculus Rift or Google Cardboard if you're on a mobile device. Augmented reality will require a mobile device that is augmented reality activated. Now, if I want to add some content into this, much like I've added in the 2D system, in the virtual reality world, I will add an image. So here I add the familiar image. If I want to interact and move this image, I click it with my left mouse button, and you'll see a gizmo pops up. Now, this gizmo will help me move this object in the 3D environment. So each axis that you see will move the object in the direction that the arrow is pointing. And when I click that axis, I know which one is active because it turns yellow. If I want to rotate, I right-click and I choose Rotate. And this then allows me to rotate the object in the direction of the axis. And if I want to scale, scale gives me one extra option. So I can choose to scale along a particular axis, but if I just want to uniformly scale this on every axis, I can choose the middle of the gizmo and I can scale the image up or down. And this works for all the elements that you can add into a slide. And so that is the basics of how you interact with the Vortals interface system.